So we thought you would enjoy seeing it. Now, these pictures haven't been edited, and they aren't all of everybody that we'd like to have, but just what we had here on hand we thought we'd put on tape for you. It's strictly for family because all the pictures aren't perfect. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it as I go along, but I probably don't need to because you may remember what the places and whom the people are better than I will. And also, if I make some mistakes in my descriptions, why, please overlook it. We don't even remember some of the places or some of the people. But anyway, we thought you'd enjoy seeing it and hope that it will bring back pleasant memories to you. And this is on the farm. I think it's Bubby, and this is on the island farm in the Snake River. Someone's just caught a fish. I think most of this doesn't need to be explained. Just looking at it is self-explanatory. Hopefully you will remember some of these, and those of you who have grown up since then would enjoy seeing it. This is the Snake River. The Snake River went along the island, and here's some of the Shasta daisies, no doubt Mrs. Grace Long planted these. See the monarch butterfly there. The farm was several miles out of Weiser, Idaho, on an island in the Snake River. Of course, Clara will remember that, and Lois was there also. And there's David Sala. This is Jean's oldest son. He was visiting the family, no doubt, visiting his grandparents. And there's the dog that Mr. Long enjoyed so much. David Sala in among the flowers. Pretty sunset picture that Ed got of a cloud that was reflecting the sun. It's a cloud. And here's the Snake River. You can see it must have been lots of fun to live there when you had that river right outside your door. Looks like it's winter time because of the ice coming down the river. See one of the birds there. Bobby did lots of hunting. And here's the plane that Ed was in, piloting, and he was taking shots from the air of the property. So this gives you a view from the air of the area. Ed had taken pilot lessons at that time. There's the bridge that went to the island. And this is Weiser from the air. Weiser was where our son David was born. Some of this may not be too interesting to all of you, so we just put in what we had. Here's the Snake River and the island again. If you look real sharply, you'll probably be able to pick out the house. Comes a steam train, steam locomotive, which is something you don't see anymore.
I didn't see it. I guess I missed it.
Ed's taking these also from the air. Mountains in the background.
That's our house at Weiser.
And there's the house, Weezer.
Pictures were taken in the winter, obviously, you still see some snow.
You can see these pictures were taken in the wintertime. Now here they're working on the farm. I think this is chopped hay. I don't like to say too much because I may not be right about everything, and I'm sure you know what it is anyway.
Looks more like dirt.
I guess they're doing some work, and that was probably dirt, probably fixing some of the area. There's the rototiller. I don't think I need to talk because they can see what it is. That's Bobby on the tractor. And here's David Sala swinging. And now he's on the tractor. Can you imagine all the thoughts that are going in his mind, can't you? There they're preparing the ground. I don't really think I need to say much. There's David Sala with the pheasant that no doubt Bobby has just shot. And there's the pheasant and Bobby with it. And a disc coming along. Someone with a pontoon plane came along and landed there on the Snake River by the property. This is one of the buildings they're tearing down. This isn't See this fish in the water there? This is, I guess they call it a slough. It comes from the Snake River. You see the fish there. Salmon. And now we're at Camp Abbott out of Bend, and this is where they bid on some buildings there after the war, and a building, and then they tore it apart and took the lumber and took it over to the island home to build their house. Clara and Frank got one also and built it in Redmond. This is one of the Army buildings because this was used during the war for training.
It's a hospital building.
And it was a hospital building.
125 feet long.
125 feet long. It's a real undertaking to take it apart and move it and put it up into a building again. And this is a scenic view from Central Oregon taken at this time, probably. Maybe now, but the mountains were the sisters' mountains. And this is a group going out around Madras when they were opening it up to water. And this is Phil Brogan, somebody that used to live in Bend. I don't know if you might remember him. Some of you, Clara, might. It's quite an important fair for this area, and so there were a lot of people there to see it all happen. Sure, the water will come through. This is at Camp Abbott again. That was probably a stovepipe, a fireplace in one of the buildings. There's Frank Bednarik, and who the other person is, maybe you do. Oh, he was in charge of the operations. And here's the baseball team that Bobby played on in Weiser. He was an excellent baseball player and was on the team there. There's Mrs. Grace Long and some friends. I don't know what these activities are. Maybe some of you might know. Some community activity or group gathering. A picnic, it looks like. There's Mrs. Long. Probably a wedding, I would say. Here's Mr. Long plowing out on the farm. He's got a cultivator, and he's liked to use the horses instead of the vehicles. Somebody getting a bath. Is that Clara? Mrs. Long? Right? These family pictures, you'll probably recognize who they are. Looks like Rosalie. And that looks like Eleanor. That's Richard. A few years ago. Some family friends. There's Richard and Lorley. Richard again and Lorley getting into the car. It's the gas pump on the ranch, and Lorley was pumping, and now Richard and Lorley are driving off in the car. Bobby's, and here we are out on the farm on the Snake River Island. And that's Laurelly. It looks like Jean. That's Jean, Ed.
Oh, yeah, okay. And that's Laird Mill.
And here is David Sala. And here's the work going on the house. That's Frank, I believe. And this is now a parade in Central Oregon, in Redmond. Probably 4th of July, I would guess. And there you can see the Mount Jefferson in the background. Typical small town parade. And here we have the servicemen marching. As I said before, I just rather let you look, and I don't need to do too much talking. You might even recognize someone in there. Here come the Shriners. They always came up from Portland for the parades. Up-to-date Ford. And the Indians from Warm Springs, no doubt. I think this area is out by the airport in Redmond, out of Redmond, and there are the mountains along on the skyline. The mountain in the background is called Mount Jefferson, for those of you who aren't familiar with our area. And here's the airport. And these look like air views. Oh yes, I think it's still during the war. I would guess that Ed was having a flight and taking these pictures. There's the mountains in the background, the Sisters Mountains. As I said before, you might not enjoy all these. We just put in what we had. And didn't have a chance to delete anything.
Look like irrigation canal.
Irrigation canal in the mountains, and I think in a few minutes there'll be some of Clara's children here. This may have been the time that she was living in Redmond. And here we have this next tape is almost all pictures of family members. This is a Camp Abbott where they were taking the building materials down from Camp Abbott, which is now Sun River. And then the next pictures on this tape will be mostly things going on the ranch, on the farm, at the island farm, different members of the family doing their work and different activities. There's Frank. And here we are in the Snake River, and here's the plowing going on the ranch, and Mr. Long is mowing. I always say plowing when I see horses without waiting to see what the equipment is. And here's shows the way the building is going on. This is at Camp Abbott. And this is probably at Camp Abbott. We switch back and forth from one place to another. And now we're back on the farm. Looks like Lorelei, I'm guessing, from the back. And there she is out on the Snake River, ready for a swim. Looks like fun, Lorelei. Wish I were there with you. And there's the plane. The airport was just across the slough from the farm. I can turn it off. Maybe you recognize these hills in the Weiser area. Those of you who lived there then. Pictures were being taken. Very expert farmers, doesn't it, from the crops you see? Now we have the house being erected, and there's Frank building. At the rate he's going, it looks like he'll be up in a day, doesn't it? Is that Bobby? And there's Bobby with his back towards you. Sorry, I don't know some good jokes to tell right now or some witty sayings. And there's some of the girls on horseback. Looks like Nita and Rosalie, isn't it? Nita and Rosalie, I believe. Clara knows anyway. I didn't ever see the girls when they were that age, so I can't recognize them as quickly. And that must be Lorelei with Bobby pushing, right? Is that something you said you got? Ed got that on more surplus someplace. Lots of fun. Here's one of Clara's girls, another one, and that's Clara driving. Bobby. It's a good thing it's pushable, isn't it? Is that Frank? Looks like Frank that time. Bobby? I think so.
I don't know. I think it's Bobby's friends.
Some of Bobby's friends, Ed says, and this is
They're going over to another island to hunt.
going to hunting, and they're crossing that part of the Snake River to go to another island to hunt. And there's the Mighty Hunters. All we like is Hiawatha.
Broke a pin.
Broke a pin. And there they go. All fixed. And here's another contraption. Now this is chopped hay, isn't it? This is chopped hay, and they're going to be loading this. Some of the birds that got away that Bobby didn't get. And these are seagulls following after and eating. Isn't that interesting? A line of them like a fence.
Fred driving.
And that's Fred Tinsley driving the tractor. And he's got a frog there.
That's not the Island Ranch. That's another river on the way to the valley.
This is another river on the way to the valley, Ed said, and there is Frank Bednarik. Who's the other man? No.
Now this is Island.
Now this is the island, and this is what they call the slough. It's some of the water that runs, and there's Mr. and Mrs. Long on their having their 50th wedding anniversary at the Island Ranch. Mr. Long and Mrs. Long.
I'm not sure that was Uncle Orange. It might have been.
I'm sure it was. There's the family. Can you recognize everybody? Should make your mouth water looking at the cake.